So long time reading a book, cooking to music, a glass of wine, and a really good Netflix show. Yeah, these are my favorite. These are a few of my favorite things.
Welcome to this video about the line 2 human design profile. So this is if you are a 2-4, a 2-5, a 5-2, or a 6-2. This is relevant to you because you are the hermit and you like to have alone time to just do your thing, to be you. And it was actually kind of funny because when I was planning out this interview series for the different profiles, I really did have a hard time finding 2s that would be willing to do interviews. I know some incredibly amazing people with a 2 in their profile, and I absolutely love these people. They're close friends of mine, but I could not get them to come on camera. And I think it's hilarious because in the end, the only people who were willing to do the interviews are all people whose natural gifts are public speaking. So they happen to be comfortable with this format. So the other people, you know, they're gifted like surfers, healers, gardeners, fixers, but not necessarily super into being visible in a mass media kind of way, which is perfectly in keeping with the character of the 2, the hermit. In the first video in this series, I talked about how the 2 really has natural gifts, and those natural gifts tend to express themselves during alone time, because the hermit tends to like to be alone and just to kind of explore and do their own thing.
Alone time for me is something that I have always needed. Even when I was a kid, I would, spend like hours in my bedroom alone, just doing whatever, playing with toys, looking through things. But it is so essential for my sanity, I feel, to really just have time to be alone. I don't necessarily have to be doing anything. I work alone most days, and so I do have a lot of alone time built into my life now, but it's something that I find I get so overwhelmed if I'm around people constantly. So having that alone time to just be in my own aura, be in my own energy, watch TV, read a book, part of it I find is just having the freedom to do whatever I want with nobody's expectations on me. I don't have to eat at a certain time. I don't have to sleep at a certain time. I don't have to do anything for anybody at any particular time. And having some sort of that freedom in my daily, weekly schedule is so important for me to feel good as my hermit self.
So being a second line, being a hermit is actually quite interesting for me because when I was younger, in my first phase of life as a 6, I used to be very outgoing, but at the same time, I really used to enjoy, spending a lot of time on my own. I used to thrive just like reading books and writing short stories, even as a kid. I would love video games. I'd love to be in like my little cocoon. And I find that now as I'm growing older, I do need that. I do need that alone time. And I definitely see it the most when I'm navigating daily life in my business and at home. So I find that I have these cycles of wanting to be bold and wanting to be seen and wanting to shine and just wanting to just radiate that projector light outwards. And then I feel like I really, really need to kind of retreat and go back into my cocoon, just so I can rest and recharge and feel like myself again. I find that as a projector, the second line actually is very natural to me. What with my strategy being waiting for the invitation, but also, my energy not being as, I guess, consistent as the other energy types, such as generators and manifesting generators. And so having this need for rest and solitude and retreating actually built into my profile kind of feels really natural. So the good news is that having alone time actually comes very easily to me. I work from home. I am my own boss. I do live with my partner, but he's also a second line. He's a 5-2. And so we both really understand and accept and honor each other's need for individual space for alone time. So what will happen, as a very tangible example, is that he will stay in the kitchen watching YouTube videos, for example, and I'll be in the home office doing my own thing, and then we'll come together and find each other when we have the desire and the energy to do so. So I find I navigate that alone time quite well.
When I was a kid, my girlfriends would ask me out to play, and especially around grade 9 or 10. No, yeah, maybe it was then too. Yeah. And I would just out to play, but out to hang out, to do things with them, go, follow the boys. And I'd be like, no, thank you. And then they would call my landline. I'd tell my mother to lie and say I wasn't home. I really like to stay home alone, solace in solitude, read books, hang out in my treehouse when I was younger by myself, and loneliness was not a part of my experience of alone. I loved being alone. So let's say that I find being alone to be fortifying and restorative and essential to my mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And same thing in university. It was so funny. I was so busy because I had 4 jobs at one point. I was a tour guide, I was a weight room instructor, I was a bartender. Well, those 3 corresponded. 1 year in university, I had 3 jobs. So you would say maybe I wasn't a loner type, but then when I wasn't working, I spent so much time alone. My roommate could not drag me out of the residence to go play, to go to the bar and hang out socially. So yeah, that's part of my MO. Mm-hmm.
I like to spend a lot of time meditating, journaling, dancing. I love to dance. I have lots of living room dance parties by myself. I can just do that all day. I love to read, listen to books, things like that.
While they're busy doing their thing, they prefer not to have attention, but the very fact that they're doing their thing attracts attention to them because they have natural talents and natural gifts, and people see what the 2 is doing. And that's why in the metaphor of the house, when we talk about the human design profiles, there's a naked person in the window dancing, and they're just in the in the living room dancing naked and having a great time, but meanwhile everybody on the street is watching them and seeing, oh my gosh, wow, look at what they're doing, that's incredible, how do they move that way? And this is exactly what happens with the 2, is that they do get noticed for their gifts and eventually called out, which is the topic of the next video. Steve Rhodes of the Bantu system likes to emphasize that the 2 is really interested in finding and discovering something new. So oftentimes when they are in their kind of own world doing their thing, they're looking for something new and they're curious to find something new that's going to captivate their interest. And this is what people end up coming to the 2 for is something new, like what's on the horizon? What can you bring us that we haven't seen before?
I love that time in the morning when you're not asleep, but you're not fully awake. And so your conscious mind isn't operating yet, and you're not editing anything out, but yet you're not asleep, so you remember everything. And it's I don't know, there's probably a name for that state, like
Liminal.
Oh, really? Liminal. Well, that's when I get some really good ideas, and I solve some problems, and it's like free. It's like there's no boundaries. Everything is just like kind of like up there and floating around. I know it sounds weird, but and I'm alone. I mean, even if my husband is beside me, he might be asleep or he might be, but I feel really in again, almost like an altered state of consciousness. It was in that state when I had my vision for a product that I made in my company. I was visited with the vision at that time, and it was a recurring, so it happened more than once, and I was compelled to make the thing that I saw in my vision, and it ended up being a multi-million-dollar product and family of products for our company that really was the foundation of our success. It was called La Parka. And those Canadians, those of you who remember La Parka back in the 90s and the early 2000s, you'll remember that every schoolyard had a teacher on yard duty at recess in the middle of winter wearing a parka. Because again, it was cold, it was warm, it was gorgeous and romantic looking, and it was multifunctional, and it just became a selling phenomenon. I was so blessed that I had that vision.
Another thing that's interesting about the line 2 is that in their alone time and with their creativity that emerges while they're doing their thing, is they don't really need someone else to be involved in order for them to express their gifts. So their gifts are self-contained, they're already within, and then they're just coming out. So it's not like they have to co-create it. Maybe there might be like a small exception with the 2-4, because the 4 is going to naturally bring more interconnection and of like a people element, but the 2 aspect is very self-contained.
My living situation, like I started out living with my family and there was like 6 of us in one house. Then when I moved out, I went to living with 9 other people. And then when I finally got out on my own, where I was living in my own apartment, like I didn't want anybody to come over. I was like, no, I don't want to see you. Like people would come over and I'd be looking at my watch being like, okay, and you're leaving when? Like I love my alone time. I love, when we all had to like stay home and they were like, stay home, like, okay, I have no problem with that. I will stay home. That's fine with me. I'm good with it. But again, I wasn't always like that. I was always fighting that urge to stay still. It was kind of like this back and forth of, when I needed to stay still, that I wasn't really comfortable with. And now it makes sense to me, now that I'm really tapping into these different parts of myself, like being the 2, being the 4, and understanding that, yes, the alone time is important just as much as the connecting and connecting with people and connecting to people.
There's a little bit of an aspect of not wanting to be interfered with, of actually being secretive and maybe even pushing people away. So a 2 could be kind of almost asking for more time alone, and that could be like part of the shyness and boldness dynamic, because the 2 operates in a dichotomy of being bold and then also being very shy.
When I learned about the shyness versus boldness aspect of the line 2, it just made so much sense to me, and I feel like it answered a lot of questions for me in relationships and helped me to understand myself better in relationships, because sometimes, even with people that I'm really close with, even with my partner now that I've been with for almost 4 years, some days I kind of like catch him by surprise because I'm super bold and out there and expressive and like really funny, and he gets a kick out of it. And other days it's just like, no, me, I don't want to talk, I don't want to share, I can't say these things, I can't get these words out, and it's just such a different energy. And I feel like that really used to mess up with my confidence, because I felt like there was something wrong with me, or like why I couldn't rely on that. But now understanding that shyness versus boldness, it's like sometimes I'm just going to be in the mood to be like bold and sort of funny and unexpected. At least that's how it shows up for me. There's usually a lot of humor involved. And some days I'm just going to be shy and I'm not really going to be able to express things well or clearly or easily, or to show up in an expressed way. And that's totally fine, but it helped me so much to understand that about my line 2.
In terms of shyness, yes, I can sometimes be shy, purely because, and I think this has something to do with the fact that as a second line, especially an unconscious second line, I don't always see what other people see in me. And so when they tell me like, oh, you're so talented and you're so amazing at doing this and that, it doesn't always kind of resonate for me because I don't see that as clearly as they do. And so in those moments, I can be a little bit bashful. In social situations, I can sometimes feel a little bit shy, especially if I'm on my own at a party or that kind of thing. But yeah, like it does kind of bounce between the shyness and the boldness, and ultimately I do feel the need for both.
Going between shyness and boldness for me, it's who is the person or the group I'm connecting with at the time. There's different people that bring out different personalities or different traits in me. Some good and some bad, depending on what way you look at it. I mean, to this day, no matter how old I get, if my mother is in the room, I'm a 5-year-old, so it doesn't change. That's just the dynamic of our relationship. But if it's, some, 3 or 4, group of people, that's kind of like my jam of, connecting with small groups and, really feeling it and sharing and connecting and sharing resources. That really gets me like out there and say, oh, this is who you need to call, and that's who you need. And that's what I love doing.
If you would like to connect and join an amazing network, you can join the Grid Network for Light Leaders, a free Facebook community that I host. That's a fun way for us to interact and get to know each other. So the link to that is in the description box. And if you would like to get my eyeballs on your chart and to do a reading for you, I am very good at helping people get super clear on who they are, what they're here for, and what are their next steps, and to really help you create your next level of freedom. So you can check out my readings on my website, karenmcmullen.ca, and again, that is linked below in the description box, as well as other goodies. So in the next video, we're going to be talking more about this dynamic of being called out that happens for the 2. So you can check that out. I'll post it there as soon as it's ready. And I'll post the other video in the series here. And if you want to stay tuned, you can subscribe here. So thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.